Stillborn to Life, a novella by Stevens. Chapter 7. I am 19, standing upon the beach where once barren earth was desolate and desolate, but if in the womb of God, surrogate father of a humankind so plagued by bias and gluttonous bigotry of subjectivity, relativity. I note that there are just as many occasions for song as there are for silent suffering and weeping. But if I dream only while asleep, I am always sleeping. There is something within me. There has always been something within me that knows that I am greater than the sum of my parts, and even greater than that. Yet knowing this merely increases my agony and further stultifies any exultation. They say that angels gather on the shores at sunrise, and that they hear music we cannot, and that they dress in flowing robes of black and billowing white, and that they always know the difference between wrong and right. It has also been said that the one thing they cannot understand is how human mortal kind often seeks just as much solace in hate as we do in love. They say that angels walk the earth without ever feeling it beneath their feet, cool, firm, and inviting, instead feeling the gravitas of the world only within their hearts. They say that when angels are nigh, we rarely even know it. They also say that angels are among us as we speak, secretly wishing that they were us. This much at least we share in common, but of the demonic, I often think we are better acquainted with this unseen dark principality. I have just committed another murder. The blood still teems upon my hands, my bloodlust having grown far more compelling than any divination I can draw upon within my animus. And as I stand here, kissing fear upon the lips, the tongue of rage enters, my eager orifice shuddering with douleur exquise, as a primal scream instead escapes, now having found perfect pitch and harmony with the morose choir of a legion of demonic quartets, shattering the fine membrane of the essence. Standing here, kissing fear upon the neck, shards of that shattered essence are hurled, piercing the jugular. I, now taking heed, for fear bleeds, filling the void to overflowing, a thorough purification, dirtying the means. Standing here, kissing fear upon the collarbone, a trembling boy with the body of a man, the bone and marrow jutting forth jagged and weary to cut the lower lip of indifference, releasing a gradual drip of bare hug release, and a loosening of the jaw as it falls silent, gracious to rest upon the charged air. Standing here, kissing fear upon the breast, the ultimate symbiosis with the immortal earthly mother, who coaxes all to gluttony upon her fecund loam of rancid milk and love of money, the oozing, eager mind splattering all sooty and black upon the heaving bosoms of all one nation under God indivisible figureheads on standby. Standing here, kissing fear upon the navel, a buildup of fire-hazardous lint clings to the hot, tea-stained incisor, as the ever-livid tongue remains flaccid and imbecilic, and the violent vocal instinct has its say, nonetheless. Standing here, kissing fear upon the knee, exalted through denigration, as the masochists of intangible and endless archives are filed maniacally for past, present, and future use, in coda upon the amygdala, all limbic systems ago, sending a mercurial blood rush to the capillaries, pupils now constricting, vessels dilated then broken, as the kneeling rewards only those who feign submission while living in hypodermic anarchy. And it peels away the tender, bruised flesh of the human soul, a fat feast of substantial portions. Standing here, kissing fear upon the foot, the unopposable hallux, hairy with arrogance, gives one last whiff of this chemical warfare. A solemn truce of passive resistance is made. A calloused heel is raised, and I am kicked straight forth into transcendent absolution. All of my life, it has been the very thing which could have destroyed me that has in the end been my savior. And yet it is often the things which I thought would save me that have systematically sought to destroy me. Quod nutrit, me destruit indeed. And thus have I worshipped only paradox, for I have lived religiously by its laws and creeds, and miraculously am still here to testify to it. And I often ask how much darkness we must let into ourselves before we can see enough to be enlightened for good. For where the light is brightest, how the shadows do loiter about, screaming out relentlessly for our acknowledgement, traipsing at our heels like mad, stray, starving orphans, until we succumb to some benign sense of perdition for daring to put joy before despair and living before dying. For truly, what is the cure for the human condition? There is none, and this is the remedy. For those who insist upon walking backwards and blind always fall to their deaths. Thus have I sought at all costs to be fully what I am. Yet I and those like me have been deemed unfit for public consumption. For the truth is, most choose to dwell in lies and fear, even abhor truth. Yet it is only the truth which sets us free. It is only within the shadow of the light that we are truly seen and fully found. And she was the only one who understood this. Hence did she become my one and only accurate mirror, my soulmate. Hence did she become life itself to me, as I underwent a kenotic dying unto her daily. For beauty, by its very nature, is indiscreet. It can be no other way. For though the world may loathe beauty in those who seek it and possess it with a seething envy and contempt, it also seeks them with the same urgency. There with her it was a slow, sweet, swaying slave of self. Of her the angels and the divine spoke without rebuke. O soul of emeralds brought forth from the most barren mine, she was the lost oblivion. For most of my life, the only faith which I truly knew was a deep and abiding faith in uncertainty. For if the divine was indeed in reign over my life, then fate was even more estranged than I had previously pondered. In essence, my existence was an entity in dissension with its very self. And more, the need for my own vehement will and earnest search in and of themselves to be sufficient in taming my ennui were proving futile. For caution may be a cataract in the eye of fate, but should it suffice to presume that the only remedy be by proxy the removal of the whole damn eye? Although this would indeed bring a whole new definition to blind faith. And perhaps ignorance is bliss, at least until one's own folly is brought to reminiscence. And when this occurs, we cannot help but be changed forever. And so we tug upon the tattered, threadbare sleeves of our idols, wishing and pleading to return to sweet inscience. But the mind is far less akin to pardon than the heart. and I found that there truly was no such thing as denial, let alone oblivion. But I knew that I must go on. I knew that I must find faith in something, even if it was merely in my own faithlessness. For I intuited from deep within that to believe was indeed to be, but that to only believe was the queen mother of all despair and regret. For I knew that life was to be nurtured and found first from within, then from without. And even if nothing seems to have meaning, even if in our omniscience lacking eyes it all amounts to dust in the end, I came to truly see just how hopes and dreams may indeed be virtues, but how they can also reveal themselves to be lies and omission. And I resolved that I could have faith, if I could find faith in anything, in the constancy of human venery and vagary. I could have faith also in just as much of an abundance of the sweet breads of this life and mortal human experience. And above all else, of course, I could have faith in the one who would stop at nothing to preserve such things. Thus, at the tender age of 19, my lover had left me, and I had become what I had for so long feared. I wanted reason back, but he had left without so much as an adieu. Hence was I for a while back with delirium and shame, and oh, what a loathsome threesome we indeed made. And I often pondered, what is this mortal mind? At first it wraps you within a warm, luxurious sanguinity with its faint echo of a whisper, then without warning, becoming a shattering soprano scream. It is the mind, ever clear and ever present in its danger. In its first phase, it is the conscience amour proper, and its fruit comes from the majestic tree of all that is good and wholesome. At its second phase, it is the conscience vagabond, still pondering the possibility of its prodigality, and thus is it still copious with hope. This phase is most commonly where most dwell in limbo for most of their lives upon this earth. Yet unless the crimes that this phase of mind has been party to are brought to the light of admonition, truth, and justice, it will quickly begin its transmogrification into the next phase of being, the conscience lost. And this is the third and final phase. For once the mind has fully committed itself to ignorance and insolence, the soul is hard to deprogram. Yet, despite this keen insight into all things, I never felt completely lost, despite the heinous crimes I had committed. It was this very sentience which often drove me towards madness, yet would also serve to be my one and only redeeming grace. Oftentimes it is those things which encumber us the most, which have the potential in the end of setting us free. Yet we often must descend to Hades before we find our Valhalla. Why do you think so many waste away their truest transcendent potential for the deceptive, ground-leveling lows of mediocrity? Because we know all too well the cost to be exacted should we rise above that Icarian dread. Yet it was in me to soar to dangerous heights as much as it was to plumb the depths of precarious lows. Yet I would continue to fight, for I was one very much hell-bent on heaven.